On that day, every human on earth turned to stone. Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Northern Soul Reaper, and today I want to talk to you about a manga series called Dr. Stone. Now that little thing that I read at the beginning there, that is the first panel of the manga. I'll put it up on screen so you guys can see what the artwork looks like. Now, Dr. Stone is a manga series that I'm currently reading. It's being serialized in Shonen Jump. It's up to about chapter 136 or 137, I'm not sure. I'm currently up to chapter 60, and I thought that I would just make this just quite quick video just to kind of give my impressions of it without diving too much into spoilers, and to kind of help you decide if you were thinking about looking at it, and just to help you decide if you think you should read it. Now, I've got a few notes here, so we'll go through those. Dr. Stone is currently being written by Richiro Inagaki. Hopefully I pronounced that right. He is probably most famous for Eyeshield 21, another great series. And the artwork is being done by Boichi. Now, this tag team together, I'm really enjoying what they're putting out to kind of let you know what I think of the manga. Now, should you read it? First thing, did you watch the anime and did you like it? If both of those things are yes, you should probably pick up the manga. It's normally my answer is someone asks me whether they should read a certain manga. It's like, okay, well, if there's an anime, did you like the anime? Yeah, you should probably pick it up. But if you're coming into this blind and you just want to know kind of roughly what it's about, we'll go through it. So the two main characters initially in the series are Senku and Taiju. They are high school students in kind of our modern times, and one day everyone on Earth is hit by this strange phenomenon and everyone is turned to stone. And then we skip kind of forward around 3,700 years, I think it is, and Senku manages to break out of the stone encasing about 6 months prior to Taiju, and then it picks up with Taiju breaking out of his stone casing that was kind of encasing him. And then the early chapters, kind of volume 1, is Senku and Taiju coming together to kind of try and kickstart civilization. So Senku in the past was a scientist, and he is kind of, they're living in this stone era, as they call it, and there's no medicine and there's no processed food, readily available food, and there's not even something as simple as shaving. They've got to overcome these challenges. But Senku, he's got the know-how. He's got the know-how from years ago, the science behind everything, how to fabricate things and what chemicals to use as things. And Taiju brings the brawn. So if anything needs lifting or breaking or, anything, they make wine. So to press the grapes, Taiju straight in there and using his raw brawn to do that. And then, without going too much into spoiler territory, they end up managing to break another person out of the stone. Called Tsukasa, the strongest primate high schooler. And this is kind of the first few chapters, so it's not really too big of a spoiler, but he's not the best guy. He doesn't want Senku to kickstart civilization because he thinks that if people are given the tools to live as they did before, they'll fall into the same routines, war and enslaving people, forcing them to work and things. And he doesn't want to devolve back to the old world. He wants to live in this new world where the young can truly rule. So what the current arc is Senku, because he realizes that he can't beat Tsukasa hand to hand, in sheer physical strength, so he's going to beat him with his brain. He's going to use science to overcome Tsukasa's might. And that's really the first kind of big arc of the series, and it's a lot of fun. Now, I'll leave it there for story because I don't want to spoil too much, but what I will say is I'm really enjoying this series. A lot of the series kind of main hook and the draw from chapter to chapter is Senku will say, okay, in order to do what we want to do, we need this technology, and to make that technology we need this and that part and this and this and this and this and this and this, and he draws a big roadmap of things that they need, and then the flow of the chapters is, okay, we'll get that piece very slowly, we'll get that piece, and oh, now we've got that bit, now those two together, that allows us to make that, and then we can get that, and it's a slow coming together of all these different materials, elements, chemicals, processes, fabrication, tanks, and and once they're all together, and then it's that big, okay, now we can build this, and then they get it, and it's so satisfying because you followed it for, it might be 10, might be 15, might be 20 chapters, you followed them through that kind of journey to get there. And it's a really, and because it's science, but it's always explained in a way that you're going to understand it to a degree, and a lot of that is Senku explaining to Taiju, because he's kind of like a facsimile for the reader, because you're not expected to understand these scientific things, but Senku explains it in a way that Taiju will understand to a degree, and then you kind of understand it to a degree. And I'm really enjoying that flow at the minute anyway, because that seems to be the way that the series is kind of progressing, is like, that kind of, oh, we'll get that, and then we'll get that, and then that'll let us get that. And it's a really compelling week to week, chapter to chapter hook. Now I am reading, I'm behind, so I'm reading, I'm catching up, but when I do get caught up, I fully expect that this kind of hook is going to be what keeps me reading each week. And yeah, the story is fantastic. I would recommend reading it just for that, but I can't understate the artwork. It is phenomenal. The world is given such weight, such presence of itself. It almost feels like a character in and of itself. Every panel, every character, every face that's pulled is just, it's illustrated to absolute perfection. I'll put a couple of panels up, some of my favourite things, but the serious notes and the muscly characters are they're really well drawn, and like it comes across like when you see the muscles on someone, and you see the determination on their face, that that's a person not to be messed with. But then it even manages to, from 1 minute they'll be talking about something terrifying and horrible and like a scary creature or a person, and then the next the humour shines through, and someone will pull a daft face, and it's got some of the best, like, confused or annoyed or flabbergasted or just irate faces that I've ever seen in a manga. Again, I'll try and put a couple up on the screen because they are just hilarious. The artwork's fantastic. The actual scenery, when they're walking through, even just a forest or a cave or something, and you're seeing this world reclaimed by nature, because it's 3,700 years later, there isn't really much of civilization left, and you see how the world is kind of taken back over, and it reminds me of The Last of Us, something like The Last of Us, but cranked up to 10 to 11. The world has really reclaimed it, and you also get these somber notes when you see all these people encased in stone who've been left behind, and you can see the expressions on their faces, and they were living their lives when this phenomenon hit, and they're just left to stand for so many years. And the artwork really brings out that kind of emotional response. Yeah, I would say, read it for the fantastic writing, but stick around for the artwork, because it's, from chapter to chapter, it's just going from strength to strength for me personally. So that kind of sums up my thoughts initially on the series. I do want to kind of convey whether I think you should read it, and I will say with a resounding yes, you should read this series. I wholeheartedly recommend you read Dr. Stone. The writing, the artwork, the characters are so lovable. Everyone that you run into, well, with the exception of the villains, but even it's got that thing of like even some of the villains, you can see them as being likable to a degree. Not quite Tsukasa, but without spoiling too much, there are other characters later. And yeah, I would say check it out. If I'm reading it on the Shonen Jump app now, the Shonen Jump app is fantastic. It's $1.99 a month, and it has the entirety of Dr. Stone archived, but then also when I catch up week to week when it's released, it'll be on show in the app. And that's the same with a lot of series. So if you're looking for a place to read shonen manga specifically, pretty much as it releases in Japan, you can't go wrong with the Shonen Jump app. But for Dr. Stone, it has 9 volumes so far. Physically, I think 9 volumes. And you can pick those up physically. And to be honest, I am considering picking them up just because I'm enjoying the series so much. Yeah, so in summary, read Dr. Stone. If you like shonen manga in particular, and you want a kind of serialized story, but it's a little different to what we've seen before, do yourself a favor and pick it up. Pick up the app or pick up the first volume, and read it. So yeah, that's the end of the video. To wrap things up, I hope you liked this video. It was a kind of shorter video. I want to kind of put out a couple of videos a week, and the midweek video, I kind of want it to be a little bit of a what am I reading? Should you read this? Or mini reviews. If you like that kind of video, if you want to see more of it, please consider giving it a like, and if you would subscribe to the channel, it would mean so much to me. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much for staying till the end. And until next time, goodbye.